The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Chapter 12, verse 28 to 34. At that time, one of the scribes came up to Jesus and asked, "What commandment is the first of all?" And Jesus answered, "The first is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these." And the scribe said to him, "You are right, teacher. You have truly said that he is one, that there is no other but he, and to love him with all the heart, with all the understanding, with all the strength, and to love one's neighbor as oneself is much more than all burnt offerings and sacrifices." And when Jesus saw that he had answered wisely, he said to him, "You are not far from the kingdom of God." And after that, no one dared to ask him any question. The Gospel of the Lord. Lead questions for today. Question number 1. You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 2 to 6 that we had as our first reading. What are the implications of this for your life as a Christian today? Question 2. Mention 2 gospel stories in which Jesus taught his listeners that love of God and love of neighbor are so closely linked that they should not be separated. 2 stories. Question 3. Name examples of how many Nigerian Christians are today violating the love of neighbor. Actually, it's wrong. It's how often. Examples of how many Nigerians often violate the love of neighbor. How we are often violating the love of neighbor. Give example. Question 4. As a parent, as an elder brother or elder sister, how best can you teach the children around you to express their love for God, true love for neighbor? We do not have a problem in this society about people saying, "I believe in God," and people actually saying, "I love God." Right? We don't have a problem with that. If you go out now and you do a survey, you will discover that the majority of Nigerians not only say, "I believe in God," but the numbers say, "I love God. I have Jesus as my personal Savior and Lord." So that's not our problem. Our problem is to what extent that love translates into love of neighbor. How would you teach your younger ones and your children how to express this thing we say in the mouth, "I love God," how to express it in love of neighbor? Yes, right.
I would like to attempt question 1. It says, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. What are the implications of this for your life as a Christian today? I think for me, I came to a point of understanding that loving the Lord my God with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my strength means that whatever I do, with my heart, with my soul, with my strength, with my mind, with all that I am, must be pleasing to him. Because he says that if you love me, you will keep my commandments. So love is not just a matter of words. It's a matter of action. So if I say I love the Lord with all my heart, the question is, what is the condition of my heart?
So love is not just a matter of words.
Yes.
Love is a doing word. You remember I have a poem,
Yes.
right? Love is a verb. It calls forth love. An action word makes things happen. Love is a verb. There is no word as good as love. For there is no verb as good as love. Love is a verb. And verb is an action word. So it cannot be just mouth.
Yes.
Whatever I do has to come from my heart. Now, what about whatever I do, I should do it from my heart?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You see, many people do many things. Apparently, some good things. But does it necessarily come from the heart? And when the heart is not there, there is no love. When there is no love in it, the heart is not there. Because where the heart is, that's where there is love. Does that make sense to you? If you come to church here and your heart is not in it, it will be clear that you are it's an empty ritual. It's empty ritual. And the challenge that Jesus Christ had with the Pharisees all the time is that their heart is not in it. That the new religion he brings is a religion of the heart. You shall love the Lord with God with all your heart, with all your mind. So if you go through all the ritual and your heart is not there, then it is empty ritual. It is not Christian religion. So you are saying, I do everything with my heart in it.
Father, and it boils down to the motive of our hearts, because in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, Paul says you can do all things, but you have no love. You're just nothing. So it means the motive of your heart in whatever you're doing is very important.
So with that, in that passage, St. Paul actually talks about performing miracles.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If I can ask mountain to move
Yes.
and be planted into the sea, and that can happen.
Yes.
But if I have no love in my heart, wow. Do we read the scriptures at all? Because if we read the scriptures, how come we think that anybody who is doing any wonder, he has just eaten breakfast with God? How come? I mean, we think that whoever is doing wonder has just had breakfast with God. So that just to go, if we have opportunity to get his handkerchief. No, I mean, not that we'll have opportunity to shake his hand. I mean, that's too much. But to get his handkerchief. Christians need to read the scriptures more. And not just to read the scriptures on the surface level, but to try to understand. Because the Lord speaks to each one of us directly. Right? The Lord speaks to each one of us, ministers to each one of us. If I have all kinds of strange language and I can speak in tongues and do all kinds of things, if I have no love, I'm just blabbing. Is that not what St. Paul says? Yes. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 1 to 13. I'm just blabbing. So, and Jesus came and said to the Pharisees, all these ones you are doing, if there is no love in your heart, it is not worthy of God. So it is very important for us to recognize what it means to love God with all one's heart. To love God with all one's heart. Give a round of applause. Yes, Emmanuel.
Father, please permit me to attempt question number 2. Mention 2 gospel stories in which Jesus taught his listeners that love of God and love of neighbor are closely linked and that they should not be separated. Father, there are many. For me, the 2 classical ones. The first one, the story of the Good Samaritan.
Give me a round of applause. The Good Samaritan. Yes, second.
Father, the second one for me is the woman caught in adultery.
The woman caught in adultery.
The people who obviously think that they have caught her were thinking that they were obeying God's law by saying she must be killed and stoned to death.
But does God permit adultery?
No, God does not permit adultery, but in that story, Christ really shows that our God is a God of a second chance. And when they brought her to him, instead of saying, kill her, he looked at the woman first and saw a child of God who should be given a second chance to repent.
And the people around did not give her a second chance.
The people around did not give her a second chance.
Give him a round of applause. Yes, Mike.
Father, I want to make a little addition to question number 1 and attempt question 4. In that short quotation by Christ Jesus, he mentions all 4 times. All. Jesus demands our total commitment and surrender to him in love. And the love of our neighbors. All.
Can we say together? All. Whole. Total. Everything.
It is not that many of us don't love God, but do we love him with all our hearts? Some of us are divided in our loyalty to him.
Actually, many of us are divided.
And that is the problem. That is the issue. So if we want to truly obey his commandments of love.
You know, when I told you that it is important to be reading the life of saints, one of the things we learn from the saints is that the one who would live the life of God faithfully is the one who desires the one thing. The saint, can we say together? The saint is the one who desires the one thing.
The saint is the one who desires the one thing.
Now, what does that mean? It means his or her heart is not divided.
Now, to question number 4. What the children God has given to me to care for, what I teach them about loving God through the love of neighbor, is for them to show compassion.
You teach them about compassion.
Compassion to the neighbor. To help a neighbor in need.
Where are the people you are taking care of? Mama.
One is here, one is in the other place.
Does he do that? He does that. And are you following that example? No, we'll have to find out from your friends. Okay.
And I teach them not to keep malice, because malice is an evidence of a lack of love.
In your heart.
There should be forgiveness also, because it is true. There'll be occasion of offense, but to show love of your neighbor is to quickly put that offense behind you.
Because actually, in the one heart, there is no room for bitterness and resentment at the same time as love. Is there room?
No.
The heart cannot contain the two at the same time. So if you are not seeing bitterness and resentment, at that very time, there is no love in your heart. Those of you who are experiencing bitterness and resentment, can you help me confirm? Are you saying you are not an expert in that one? Okay, you are not an expert. Helen, I'm talking of those days, not in recent time. I'm talking of those days, you know what I'm talking about.
Father, when you hate everything about you, there's no room for love.
An expert is talking. So, he says when you hate, everything about you is hate. There is no room for love because the brain does not multitask. The heart, in fact, if the brain does not multitask, more so with the heart. The heart is either full of love or it has no love. You cannot do it half-half. Yes.
Yeah, well, Father, I usually conclude and tell them that the love of your neighbor, your attitude towards your neighbor, is the evidence of your love of God.
Correct.
Because you cannot love God whom you cannot see and hate the neighbor whom you see.
So your love of your neighbor, the actual expression with love of your neighbor is the scorecard. It's your report card to show that you love God. Give him a round of applause. Okay, Helen.
Father, let me attempt question number 3.
Yes.
Name examples of how many Nigerians
How often
Nigerian Christians are today violating the love of neighbor. Father, the thing is that there's a gap between our words and our actions. Because our actions actually speak so loud that we don't care for you. But when we want election, we say, vote me, I will do this. Vote me, I will do that. The moment they get into office, they forget about the reason why they came to office. To help, to serve. They start serving themselves.
Wait, this one you are saying. Me, I was at a conference with one of our big men last week.
Yes, Father.
And he said that during campaign,
yes,
politicians speak prose, and governance is poetry. Yeah.
What does that mean?
He says, campaign is prose. Governance is poetry. And then later he was asked to explain. He said, during campaign, you come and explain that you will build this road. He said, you have not even found out the cost of those things. You have not even investigated what they will cost. That is prose. And he says, governance is the reality. The reality of this is poetry. This is last week. This is last week at a major conference. I was looking at him and saying, eh? Yes. So and our leaders should be careful, because how do you make promises that you have not actually investigated, you don't intend to keep? And he says, he's telling us that is real politics. That is real politics.
Yes.
Which, when you campaign, what did you speak? Poetry or prose? You spoke the truth. Okay. Whether that truth is poetry or prose, you spoke the truth.
Father, and then the second...
So one of the ways by which Nigerians violate love of neighbor is by speaking some language that they don't intend to carry out, right?
Yes, Father. Father, like the first question says, love of God. Every human being is built in the image of God. So if you love God, then you have to treat the human being with dignity. But it's government workers or workers' salaries for years, for months. How do you say you love your neighbor when you don't pay his salary? When you go to eat, you spend so much on a meal, but you can't pay 30,000 for somebody who works 30 days in a month for you.
I have constantly told people that, you see, this is part of lack of planning. And also, when perhaps people are campaigning or getting to power, they promise to employ people, right? As part of bribery for people to vote for them. They have not found out what the budget is and what it means to pay these people per month. They have not found out. And so they are stuck. Beyond that is what you are saying. What I have constantly talked about here, the gap between public office holders, what comes to them, and what goes to the lowest worker, who they can go and sleep while owing. The Bible says that you should not owe a laborer who works for you for that day, beyond that day.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And he explains, because that is what he relies on to eat that day. But we can go and sleep and owe poor workers for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months, 1 year. I mean, it's a very serious issue in this country. And perhaps many who are Christians cannot link that to love of God. and how that violates love of God and love of neighbor. We spoke here a few Sundays ago about pension. How somebody can be a director somewhere. We have some directors here. How somebody can be a director somewhere, knowing that if she's going to retire tomorrow, she's going to earn 400,000 naira per month as pension, and can give 20,000 to somebody who was a senior director who employed her 20 years ago, 25 years ago, can actually give the person 20,000 as his or her pension, and can sleep well and not be haunted by this evil, this sin. I can't understand. I really can't understand what's going on. It is not easy. The problem is harmonization is not easy. I say, come on, if you can't do the arithmetic, bring it, I'll do the arithmetic for you. What does it take? I say, somebody worked for 35 years and retired 30 years ago and is still alive. At that time, he earned 5,000 naira as his pension. 5,000 naira at that time can buy a car.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Then you retire after 35 years today and you get 400,000. And then you are still giving that old man 5,000. Isn't it a mortal sin? What does it take? It says harmonization. Harmonization, how many years did he work? 35 years. How many years, if somebody works 35 years today, how much? You say 400,000. Give him 400,000, my brother. What is the problem? Why this wickedness in this country? Why the wickedness? And some of these people who actually employed you. I told you how Engineer Bassi has spent his whole life since retirement fighting for this. And then came back and told me that they did a 15% adjustment. If I were there, the old people, I would reject it. I mean, this is it. This is why my mother's pension remained 3,500 until we stopped her going for verification. Something is wrong with us. Something is wrong with us. And if we cannot link this, see, love God with all your heart. So if you cannot link this behavior with love of God and love of neighbor, then I don't know what kind of Christianity we have been teaching. Pastors and priests and preachers, what kind of Christianity have we been preaching if we cannot link this to our faith, to violating the love of neighbor? If we cannot see that this is it. So big people bring thanksgiving to us in the church and we just dance around them. And we don't critique how they do. We don't chastise them. We don't do critical social analysis to say this behavior is wrong. And if preachers and pastors and teachers have been shouting about this, we would have had this change now. This matter is serious enough for us to be on the streets demonstrating with the old people. Isn't it a shame that people of 80, 85 will be on the streets demonstrating and we will be eating popcorn in our offices? Isn't it a shame?
Yes. But lastly, and this is mostly with women, how we violate the love of neighbor, the way we treat our house helps. Father, we've been talking about it. Women, I thought men were wicked, but women are more wicked. The way they treat house helps.
So who is more wicked, men or women?
I think women now. And that is linked to...
Am I the one who said this in?
Father, that is linked to question number 4. As a parent, how do we show the children? The way we treat our house helps. Our house help, no matter how young they are, they wake up before us and they're supposed to go to bed before us. After us. Do we, on Christmas Day, tell them to sit and we serve them at table? Yeah, it's nice. You just, okay, I'm going to take over. And so on.
Are you... In the churches where I have been before here, and I think we saw a bit of it here. When you see 2 12-year-old girls walking for offertory or walking for communion, you know the one that is a child of the house and the one that is a nanny. Am I the only one that has seen that? When you see two 12-year-old girls coming forward, It is clear. The one that is child of the house may even be wearing high heel at 12 and is wearing weave on. Eh? The one that is child of the house is coming with confidence and bouncing, walking on springs. In fact, these days when they are beginning to abuse this thing, even wearing makeup safe before her age. Then the one that is a house girl is wearing slippers. And then the hair is dyed like the local women in the village. And then she is coming clearly. You can see lack of confidence. 2 12-year-old children in the house should be treated equally. What did I say? 2 12-year-old children in the house should be treated equally. If you are not doing that, you are not a Christian. If you are not doing that, you are not a 2 12-year-old. You are 30-year-old, you are 40-year-old, and you have a 12-year-old in the house. That 12-year-old is your daughter. May the Lord forgive us. Question 2, has it been answered? Oh, okay, sorry, somebody has a microphone.
Father, I wanted to add to question 3, how we violate the love of neighbor. I think that the love of God is best expressed in the way we love our neighbor.
Yes.
If we don't love our neighbor, we can't claim to love God. The law and the Bible has been summarized into one word. That is love. If we have it, nothing more is needed. But if we don't have it, everything is lost. I think also that we tend to define love for neighbor or define our neighbors in ways that won't allow us to understand who are our neighbors.
Oh, I see. How do we define our neighbor?
Our neighbors are not just your relation. They are not your immediate people in your immediate environment. They are in fact your enemies. People you think are your enemies.
Our neighbor is the next person. Whoever the next person is.
So that, I'm sure
including those who do not like us.
Yes. And people who can't pay us back the reward, who can't give us back what
they are a greater neighbor. The ones that cannot say neighbor. Thank you. The ones that cannot pay us back.
Yes.
There is greater reward to do things for people who cannot say thank you. Let me tell your neighbor. There is greater reward in doing things for people who cannot say thank you. For people who do not even know what you have done for them. There is greater reward in reaching out to them. In that case, because you see, when we do things like we dig well for a village so that they vote for us, by the time they vote for us, they have rewarded us, isn't it? So that's not charity. Our heart is not inside. We have done some transactional thing. It is a transaction. I give you borehole, you vote for me. I give you 5,000 naira, you vote for me. So it's not charity. But when we do something for somebody that doesn't get to know, which is why the abuse that has come into our churches today, where people think that they are giving money to God and they want to be applauded. You know the kind of things we have, the kind of things we don't allow in this kind of church, in this chapel. You know it's still going on in many churches, unfortunately. That you say you are giving money to God, or you are giving money for the church's work, or you are giving money for the church's charity, and you want to be applauded, and even giving some chieftaincy title in church in reward for your... What do we think we are doing? What do we think we are doing? I am happy that the Catholic Secretariat, the Bishops' Conference, they have called for a conference. And I have said whether I am invited or not, I am going. Oh yeah, I sent a text to the priest in charge to say, I saw this announcement for lay leaders to come for a workshop about how fundraising is conducted in our church. I say, whether you invite me or not, I am coming. Because I have been shouting about this. That is not the kind of workshop that I will not go. If I'm not allowed to enter, I will stay behind and scream my opinion. Yes, the way we raise money in our churches is debasing worship. It's destroying the sense of worship. And it is because the hunter has learned to shoot without missing. That's why the bird has learned to fly without perching. Some people say it is because my people are not generous. So they do what the people want. And I tell the leaders, no, you are the leader. You are the one who are supposed to teach the people what is Christian giving. Christian giving is supposed to be an opportunity for me to partake in the work of God. If you don't see it as work of God, keep your money. You know me, I have said it to you here. You bring money, you don't bring money, God's work in Lux Terra will be done. Amen? Amen. God's work will be done. Is it my work? God's work will be done. So if anybody is expecting that he will be applauded and that I will call Chief the Honorable Azubike Okwo to come to God, then I will, after that, then I will say, and he is amiable Lolo, and he will do this, and then, okay, he doesn't wear agbada, but okay. If anybody is expecting me to do that before he bring money, you will not get any such thing in Lux Terra, by the grace of God. And the Lord will provide for his people. The Lord will get his work done. You remember the book, the letter, the Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 10, when Jesus Christ sent the 72 out, he told them not to carry anything. Because he says the laborer deserves his wages. When they came back, they gave such testimony. These people must have eaten so well and been received so well. Why? Because it's not their work. The one whose work it is provided for them. And I believe it. I truly believe it. And I keep saying to my people, stop this nonsense, including nonsense of calling people who should not come to the altar to be addressing the people, because at the end of the address, he will promise some money. Stop this nonsense. So those who are pastors and teachers and priests who are hearing me, and church council, harvest, this is harvest time, right? And harvest committee chairmen who are hearing me, stop the nonsense that you do in several churches now around this time called harvest. Stop that nonsense. Teach people to give generously, to do God's work. Demonstrate to them what work you are doing, the work of God that you are doing, and give them the opportunity to be part of it or not be part of it. And if it is God's work you are doing, it will be done in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thought we are finished answering. Yes, Mrs. Michael.
But I want to say that in all of this, love. If we don't love ourselves, we can't love another person.
Oh, if we don't love ourselves,
yes, you must love yourself. Yes.
You can't love your neighbor.
I have a student who came to me and said, I hate myself, I don't love myself.
Wow.
I mean, I was really
okay,
shocked.
One of our students.
Yes.
I hate myself.
Yes.
Now, this is an important dimension. There are many people who hate themselves. There are many people who hate themselves. Or at least, if they don't hate them, they hate the way they look. And many women, including many women facing me, they hate the way they look. More women hate the way they look than men hate the way they look. Now, if you do not love yourself, you cannot possibly love. Jesus Christ says, love one another. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. So it is a serious case. If somebody does not love himself or herself, how does he love his neighbor? And please, the point Mrs. Nwachukwu has raised, I wish we had the time to discuss it. Please, from the day a child is born, teach that child that the child is adorable, that the child is an angel, that the child is a princess, that the child is beautiful. If you don't, the child will grow up feeling inadequate. And many people, especially mothers that are bleaching, what are you telling your child? That the color is not good enough? What are you telling your child? Your child grows up with an inferiority complex, a sense of inadequacy. People who are empty inside cannot possibly love another person. Learn to accept the way God has created you. You cannot get that child that grows up with that sense of inadequacy, that child will not do very well in school. Because it's constantly feeling inadequate. I mean, I got to a supermarket, my estate yesterday evening with Father Richard. Every other cream we saw had lightning. Lightning cream. So, cocoa butter, lightning cream. Olive butter, lightning cream. Lightning cream. Who are those buying these things? What's wrong with us? What is wrong with us? Why can't you accept yourself the way I accepted myself as a fine boy? And if you think I am not, go and find out my record, the number of girlfriends I had when I was young. There was competition. Ask my sisters. Ask my sisters. People accepting you begins from you accepting yourself. That's where it begins. It begins from you accepting yourself and carrying yourself up. I mean, the way I was carrying myself up, they used some ladies they'll go and do novena before they can approach me. But if you feel that you are so inadequate, you have already lost the battle. And it is affecting our young people. Can you see the kind of things that are going on in Instagram, on Twitter, on whatever? If you want to be like Bishe, go. If you want to go be like Bishe, then go to Bishe's parents to give birth to you. Master, which is the greatest commandment of the law? We just quickly go through this. You know the Jewish law had 613 commandments and regulations found in Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy. Experts used to argue which is to be given priority, which is the greatest. How best is it to summarize? The ancient golden rule says, do not do unto others what you do not want done to you. Don't do to others what you do not want done to you. The Buddhists call it compassion. What is compassion? It is an empathetic altruism that actively strives to free others from suffering. Freeing others from suffering. Jordan Peterson, my favorite psychologist, says that life is suffering. The Buddha says life is a bone falling out of its socket. Life is a bone falling out of his socket. Jordan Peterson says life is suffering. And they say, but what must we do? Do something about it. In your own little circle, do something about it to reduce that suffering. It is in the process of doing something about the suffering in the world, the suffering in our society, the suffering in your family, in the process of doing something about it to reduce suffering of your neighbor that you find meaning. Take note, you do not find meaning simply by reducing your own suffering. You do not find meaning simply by acquiring so much, and you find meaning in the process as a byproduct of working to reduce suffering of others. Help me tell your neighbor, the way you find meaning and fulfillment in life is, what are you doing to reduce suffering in others? And you don't have to be a big man, a big woman, a millionaire to reduce suffering in others. It may be that you hold a handicapped person, you hold a hand to make a task easier for the person. You have reduced suffering, right? That's how you find fulfillment. This is why some of the most fulfilled human beings are not people who are in big places. They are often people who find themselves in some awkward situations where they are helping people. Just a few days ago, I interviewed a lady, Fiona Lovett, a lady from New Zealand who has been living in Nigeria, Borno State, Kano State, Niger State, and is walking daily. When she saw Almajiri in front of her house, when she saw Almajiri sleeping outside and so on and so forth, the house she was given, she invited 6 of them to live with her. And she said she never got extra money for food. The money she had for food, she shared it with those 6 people. And that in a short while, she lost 20 kilos of weight because she was no longer able to eat well herself because she was sharing. She said she was very happy. Actually, that weight needed to go. And the weight went not through jogging. The weight went through a bit of hunger because she was sharing her one-person meal with 6 others. And she can't understand. She told me she can't understand how in this society people can be living comfortably and see this number of human beings. And then she said, didn't Jesus Christ multiply 5 loaves and 2 fish? And it went round. Please find perhaps next week that our recording will be on and watch it, because it's a very profound thing. It says what we need is more humanitarianism. What you need are people with the heart. People with a heart. She has done it in Borno. She has done it in Kano. She is doing it now in Niger. And each one of us can do that. She said she never got any money. So she said she used her feeding money and succeeded in feeding 7 of them. 6 plus herself. She lost weight, but she's happy about it. Meaning that each one of us can bring in 2 or 3 more and feed them. And she's a happy person. She's a happy person on account of that. She is finding her fulfillment on account of that. I expose this kind of stories on my program because I think my people need to learn. My people are still at the stage of primitive accumulation. It's called primitive accumulation, meaning a lot of my people have not evolved. A lot of my people have not what? Evolved. Who still think that they will realize themselves by how many things they gather, how many wives they marry, how many cars they have, how big, the kind of things that are showing on a lot of social media, really. How big the car is, how big the house is. And I am telling people who are media people, please be careful about giving too much platform to these people who are promoting vanity and vainglory. There's too much promotion of vanity and vainglory, not only in the social media, but also in the regular media. Let's be careful, because what are we teaching our young people? That what is worthy, what is valuable, is the one who has won 90 million, the one who has bought a big car, the one who has a big house. Why don't we show people like this Lovett, people like this woman, who decided to share her food with 6 more and lost 20 kilos on account of that? And she says, I find fulfillment. Who left her developed world and came here? She's been living here for the past 10 years. And she has made Nigeria her home. She is finding meaning. Let us find a way of living this life ourselves and teaching our children. This is how to love our neighbor. This is true worship. This is compassion. Prophet Micah says, what the Lord requires of you is to do justice, to love tenderly, and to walk humbly before your God. Hillel says, what you hate for yourself, do not to your neighbor. This is the whole law. All the rest is love of God and neighbor is the whole law. The rest is commentary. So that you speak in tongues is commentary. That you do novena is commentary. That you do night vigil is commentary. That you read Bible from Genesis to Revelation is commentary. The one that is the crux of it is what? Love God with your heart and your neighbor as yourself. Jesus says, you must love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, and your neighbor as yourself. This is the whole law and the prophets. So, as I always demonstrate with this diagram, you have the love of God and you have the love of neighbor. They are two faces of the same coin. They are not two different commandments. So, in responding to the scribe, Jesus brought the two commandments that we find in the Bible. One is Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, and the other is Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18. This is the summation of the law. The part we read today in our first reading from Deuteronomy only has the love of God with all one's heart, soul, and strength. But in the book of Leviticus, chapter 19, verse 18, it has the love of neighbor as ourselves. What Jesus did is to bring them together and demonstrated to us that one cannot exist without the other. And that there is a danger of separating the love of God from the love of neighbor. The danger of disconnecting or divorcing religion from life. We have done it very well in Nigeria. We have separated true piety. We have separated the love of God, the love of neighbor, from religious activities. So plenty of religious activities. And the more religious activities we have, the more hate we have in the society. The more violence, the more bitterness. Even in homes. In fact, the kind of religion that divides parents and children, where every mother-in-law is a winch. Right? Where every daughter-in-law is a potential winch because she is waiting to become So every mother-in-law is already then every daughter-in-law is a potential. I don't know why son-in-laws and father-in-laws are not part of this witchcraft. Such religion is a distortion. Such religion is a distortion, and we are destroying so much. The Pharisees and scribes often laid too much emphasis on ritual observances, sacrifices and holocausts, Sabbath restrictions, paying tithe, and ritual purifications. The way this tithe thing has been taken by many of our places, you will think that is the only license to go to heaven. But the religion is often very deficient. Love and care, mercy and compassion, justice and fair play. These are the crux of our religion. They make up the crux of our religion. See Matthew chapter 23, verse 23. For the Pharisees and the scribes, honoring God was synonymous to keeping the letters of the law. They rated themselves as very high in religiosity. They had very strict, sense of self-righteousness for their scrupulosity, external demands of the law. But for Jesus, this is not the center. The Pharisees and scribes show no mercy at all for those who infringed even the tiniest details of the law. See Luke 4, 31 to 39, Luke 18, 9 to 14, John 8, 1 to 11. For Jesus, meeting human needs is a deeper way of honoring God and fulfilling the law. Did some of you see the pictures that went around yesterday about some school inside the water? Right? That's likely to be Lagos, or is it Delta? Okay? Well, I mean, we have places like that around Unilag. We have places like that. We have places all over the place. But that is the shame of Nigeria. While ritual observances are very good, meeting urgent human needs and showing love and mercy to neighbor often should take precedence. See Luke 10, 25 to 37, Mark 2, 23 to 25. So, the love of God with all one's heart and the love of neighbor as oneself are the two faces of that coin. Biblical faith rejects all forms of idolatry, putting trust in something or someone else other than God. When Mike said it is about the whole heart, the problem with religiosity in Nigeria is that people's hearts are divided between idolizing wealth, making wealth a god, and worshiping the true God. It is not possible. Jesus Christ says you cannot worship both God and mammon. It's a great danger of power and money taking the place of God in people's lives. Loving our neighbor as ourselves. This is not an addition or an optional extra. It is actually an integral part of the first one. We serve a God who loves everyone. It is part of loving God to make people who are important to God also important to us. Loving God is expressed in loving those whom God loves. You have seen this before. I have shown you each time we take this reading that you look at the 3 commandments in the vertical part of the cross. They point towards God, right? And you look at the other commandments in the horizontal part of the cross. They point to what? To how we relate. So even the major part of it turns towards the neighbor. So loving union with God is the first one, and loving solidarity with the neighbor is the second one. Care and concern and sensitivity, truth, fairness, and justice. I hope you know that speaking the truth is part of loving the neighbor. Do you know that? Speaking the truth is part of loving the neighbor. Mercy, forgiveness, compassion is part of loving the neighbor. Generosity, kindness, patience, humility, meekness, selflessness, purity, chastity, modesty, peacefulness, mellowness of the spirit, and non-violence is part of loving the neighbor. Without the love of neighbor, the love of God is nothing but a barren emotion. And without the love of God, the love of neighbor is nothing but a refined form of self-love. Because it is only with the love of God that we can love our neighbor. I will ask you to please Google the Charter on Compassion. Religious leaders from all over the world gathered and produced a charter on compassion. And that behind every religion is the concept of compassion. You have no compassion, you are not a religious person. You are not a spiritual person if you have no compassion. The wickedness, the violence all over the place today is evidence that we are not religious. It doesn't matter how loud we shout that we are religious people. We are not religious because there is no compassion. So please Google the Charter on Compassion. Scripture passages for our reflection. The 10 Commandments. Exodus chapter 20, verse 1 to 17. The first 3 are about God. The last 7 are about neighbor. Jesus says in Matthew 25, 31 to 46, I was hungry and you gave me food, and naked you clothed me. As you did it for the least of my brethren, you did it to me. The story of the Good Samaritan has already been mentioned. Luke 10, 25 to 37. God is love. God is love. And he who abides in love abides in God, and God in me. The love of God has gathered us together. Let us rejoice and be glad in him. God is love. And he who abides in love abides in God, and God in him. Heavenly Father, we thank you, we praise you, we glorify your holy name. Thank you for your love and your goodness. Thank you for reminding us once again today the crux of the Christian faith. Thank you for reminding us that over and beyond all our running around for ritual, for prayer, for singing, for all kinds of devotional things, that above all this, if I do not have love in my heart, I have nothing. Lord, teach us this message in our hearts. I do not know how to teach this message. Lord, minister this message into the hearts of all who are here and all who watch our program. Help us to be examples of the Christian message of love, living it out in our environment. Help us to be example in the civil service. Help us to be example in politics. Help us to be example in the corporate world. Help us to be examples in our families and among our relations. Let that love transform our society for the better. Let that love transform our society from the terrible state it is in now to a society we all desire to live in. Through Christ